What's up developers, it's Dari here and I hope that you're having a great day because in this video we're going to talk about quite some stuff that's related to backgrounds in Tailwind. Before we continue on, I want to quickly let you know that you can support the channel through Patreon, where you can get access to my private Discord group where everyone is helping each other out with their coding issues. So if you are interested to join, the link will be in the description down below. First off, I want to start off at a basic level, so we're going to talk about background colors first. After that, we're going to cover heights and widths. I wasn't sure if I should have added it in this video, but I think that it will suit pretty well when creating a background. Then we're going to add a new background color, but this time it will be a little bit different since we're going to add a gradient color. So before I waste any more time with you, let's get right into the content. If we navigate back to the browser and search for background color, you can see a new item right here that we can click on. So let's click on it. And let me actually zoom in. Right here, you can see all the classes and the associated properties for background colors. And as you can see, there is a pretty clear pattern right here, or similarity to the text color. When working with text, you define the keyword text first, followed by the color, and then the level of your color. With the background, it is exactly the same, but instead of writing down the entire word background, you can write down a shortcut called BG, which stands for the background. And that's actually with everything in Tailwind. Everything that's related to text starts with text, and everything that's related to the background starts with BG. And that was pretty easy, wasn't it? So let's apply it into our index.html file. If we navigate back to Visual Studio Code, you can see that we got an h1, h2 and a paragraph inside our parent element. But what I would like to do right now is to remove it since it's not related to this video. So let me remove everything. Alright. Then inside our parent element, so the first div, we're going to add a class of bg-gray-500. If we save it and go back to Brave, open our localhost and refresh it, you can see that nothing has been added, which is pretty weird. So let's see what's going on right there. If we inspect our page right now, open the element that we need. So let me zoom in right here because it's pretty small. Alright, inside the body, we have a div class called bg-gray-500, which is alright. If we scroll down, you can indeed see that in the styling, our background color should have been applied. But if we click on our bg-gray, you can see that it has a width of 862 pixels by 0 in height in the top left corner. So what we need to do right now is to set the height and width to our element. If you're familiar with CSS, you know that it can be difficult at times to play around with your height and width. With Tailwind, it's a lot easier since it obviously provides utilities for it. So inside the browser, let's open background-color for Tailwind. And inside the search bar, let's search for width. Right here, you can see a bunch of class names with properties assigned to it. The classes always start with a W, which obviously stands for width. Then there is a dash, followed with a fixed size based on the sizing scale. W-0 stands for 0 width. W-px stands for 1 pixel. And let's skip 0.5 for 1 second and let's focus on width-1. This line right here. As you can see, width-1 is equal to 0.25 rem. And as you can see, width-2 is equal to 0.5 rem. Width-3 has a rem of 0.75 and so on. This goes up until you reach width-96. Whenever you want to define the width based on rem, you can go up to a maximum of 96, which will be equal to a rem of 24. Besides the pixels that you can define or the rem that you can define, there's also a width-auto right here, which stands for auto sizing. Besides the fixed options that I just showed you, you can also add relative width options, and this will be a percentage, so basically in pixels. With 1/2, you're saying that the width should be 50%, 1/3, you're saying that it should be 33%, is 1/3 of 100. And I hope that you're getting the point since there's a lot of options you could add. Before we test it out in Visual Studio Code, there are 4 more classes that I would like to show you. If we scroll down to the bottom of the list, right here, you can see that we have a width-full, width-screen, a width minimum, and a width maximum. With the width-full, we're setting the width equal to 100% of the parent container. We have width-screen, which is a width of 100 VW, which stands for viewport. And this is something that we'll talk about later on while making a responsive design. What CSS allows you to do is to specify the minimum and maximum width of an element. It is very limited in Tailwind, but it is good enough to make sure that your design will look good. I don't want to go over the height, since it's exactly the same, but the W is replaced with an H, which represents height. If we navigate back to Visual Studio Code, we can basically say that our parent container, so with the bg-gray-500, now let me actually zoom in, alright, has a width-full, so the width is the entire page, and let's also set the height equal to full. So we're adding a 100 width and height to our parent element. If we save it, navigate back to the browser and refresh our local host, minus an autosave, you can see that our background color has been changed to gray with a level of 500. And in my honest opinion, it's a bit dark, which makes me sad. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's change gray to blue. Save it, go to Brave, and as you can see, the background color has been changed to blue. Now there might be a case where you want to add opacity to your background. So let's say that we got a background image behind our blue background and you only want to see a thin blue layer on top of your image. What we could do for that is to go back inside our Visual Studio class. I just add my classes that are related to each other and next to each other. So what we could do right here is to basically say that our BG, so our background, dash opacity, has a level of, let's say 90. Save it. Let's go back to Brave, refresh it, and as you can see, our background has been changed a little bit. Now the default opacity is set to 1, so that will be equal to an opacity of 100. Save it, and the color is back to what it was. So with an opacity of 95 means, what we just added, is that our opacity will be 0.95. If we change it to 90, save it, refresh the browser, it has been changed a little bit, but let's change it drastically. Let's change it back to 50. So a 0.5 opacity. And as you can see, it has been changed to light blue. And if we set it to 10, it's even worse. I hope that you're getting the point. It will be useless for me to show you all the values because it will take a while. Something that I personally like, and you're probably seeing in the thumbnail of this video, is a gradient background color. So let's go back to Tailwind's website, and let's go back to the top, and let's search for gradient. Now the option that we need is the background image linear gradients, so let's open it. And before we talk about the class names, let's start with the properties this time. Whenever you want to add a gradient background in CSS, you need to set the background-image equal to the linear gradient function, as you can see right here. Then inside the function, you need to specify the directions that you would like to have. Do you want your gradient to go to the top? Then your class name is bg gradient-to-t, which stands for to the top. You have all these classes right here with different directions. You can go to the top right, to the right, to the bottom right, to the bottom left, to the left, and to the top left. These are so-called corner directions, which will indicate where your color gradient will fade to. So let's navigate back to Visual Studio Code since we're going to change up our background a little bit. If we remove the background color that we added and the opacity and replace it with bg-gradient-to the bottom, so -2-b. Save it, go back to our local host, refresh it, and as you can see, nothing has been added, since we obviously need to define the color as well. Right now, it has no clue what type of color has been defined. To do that, we can use the same colors that we've seen with the background color and text color, but it needs to be added in a different prefix. So what we need to do is to add a space, say that we want to go from -blue-300 to -blue-700. So our starting point is 300 and we want to increase the level of our blue to 700 in a gradient fashion. Save it, go back to Brave, and as you can see, it has a pretty smooth overlay. Keep in mind that adding the 2 is optional. What will happen if we remove it? Let's test it out, save it, go back. As you can see right now, the gradient will shade. Now what will happen is that the background color will shade towards a transparent background. In our case, it will be white since the root of our project has a white background. The last color prefix that we could add is the via method, which will add a color in between the from and the to. If we go back to Visual Studio Code and Ctrl Z to add our 2-blue-700 color, go right after it, and let's say that we want to add a color via -black. This will add a black color in between the gradient overlay. Save it, let's navigate back to Brave, and as you can see, we got a gradient with 3 colors right now, which is something I do not recommend you to do, but it is useful to know. This was it for this video. In the next video, we're going to focus on adding background images in Tailwind. If you do like my content and you want to see more, leave this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button.